Hey everyone, this is DWS Darius and welcome to another day in the fish room. There's a lot of things in my fish room that I'm proud of, but today I want to share something that I'm not so proud of. So we're going to take a look at my 125 gallon planted tank. In this tank I have a killer lurking. He's been killing fish since this tank has been set up as the planted tank. He's killed all my discus, all of my, half of my torpedo barbs. He killed a lot of my Odessa barbs. A lot of my rainbow fish he's killed, and a lot of my Danio. Also, my gourami has been killed by this thing, and the latest victim was a rosy barb which died today. So I'm losing a lot of fish in this aquarium all to this one thing. And the crazy thing is that this killer is in the tank because of my negligence and because of my laziness. You know, that's always the worst. Our fish may die from each other, they may die from stress, they may die from all these different reasons, but I think that the worst reason for a fish to die is because of their owner's negligence. Because, you know, these fish don't volunteer to be in these tanks. We go and we choose them, and if we're negligent, if we are lazy and they die from our laziness, I think that's the worst way for them to go. And that's the case with this tank. I was lazy, and now my fish are paying a price. So for those of you who follow my channel, you might remember a couple of months ago when I did the conversion of this tank. This tank used to be a Central and South American cichlid tank, and then I converted it into the planted tank that you see today. One of the major changes is that the substrate is now plant friendly. Before I just had regular gravel, now I have gravel with dirt and eco-complete underneath it. And in that video you can see where the problem started. So during that day I spent a lot of time, because I was moving a lot of tanks. I had my 210 gallon tank upstairs. I was bringing fish from up there down here. I had my 55, I was bringing fish from over there in here, so I had a lot of fish moving around. I spent 8 hours down here working on this tank, so I was very tired, getting on very, at that point I was wanting to get it over with because it was taking too much time. So I drained the tank of all the water, well, of most of the water, but you know, my pump was only able to drain it to a certain amount, so there was about 1 inch of water left in there. What I should have did was taken out all that water and started fresh with my new substrate. Instead, I added the dirt inside the water, and if you watch the video, you can see all of this taking place. But yeah, I added dirt into the water. That dirt became mud. You can imagine that the water was full of oxygen, and when I was adding the dirt, all the spilling and all the surface agitation was just trapping a whole lot of oxygen. On top of that, I added some Eco-Complete, and then I added my gravel. And all the oxygen that was in the water, in the mud, it was still under my gravel. Then I filled the tank with water, and now here we are weeks later, months later. That oxygen is now turning into gases. The gases are being released. The gases being released are toxic to my fish, and that's why everything is dying. So right now I'm going to take you into the substrate, try to give you guys a close-up, and I'm going to go dig around and show you some of those gases that are being released and killing my fish. So right now I have some tweezers, and I'm just going to go to the very bottom. The substrate is about, I'd say, 4 to 3 inches. You can see those bubbles being released, and look at that. And that's the source of all my problems. Underneath the substrate there was a lot of oxygen bubbles. That oxygen, my substrate, the dirt is very tight. Whenever you have like a very fine substrate like dirt or sand or just something that's very fine, you really don't get a lot of oxygen flow. Because of that, the oxygen becomes gases. The gases become deadly. Once they are released into the tank, they threaten your fish and kill them. So I know some of you guys might be saying, why do I not just go inside manually and use like a tweezer like I just did, or something just to dig up those bubbles myself? But the main fear that I have is that this tank is full of dirt at the bottom, and once I start to pull that dirt up, this tank will become completely brown, and it could take anywhere between weeks to even months to get that tank back to clear and as it was before. And in that process, I know all my plants will die from the lack of light because of the dirtiness of the water, and I just don't want to lose all these plants. So what I have been doing was I've been taking my tweezers and my siphon once a week with my water changes, and I've been digging in there. I've been trying to remove the bubbles slowly at one time, because I also think that if I remove them all at once, all those toxins being released into the tank can be like a bomb to these fish and just kill them all at once, so I don't want to face that. So yeah, once a week I've been doing water changes where I dig in the substrate with these tweezers or with my siphon to try to slowly release them. I've also recruited some Malaysian trumpet snails. Malaysian trumpet snails are good because they like to burrow. The only problem is that it'll take them months before they have a strong enough population to have a decent effect on this aquarium. But I'm sure once they are fully populated, once I have hundreds of them in this tank, which I think will occur in a couple of months, the problem will definitely be destroyed. It's just a matter of, are my fish able to last that long? Okay everyone, so that's the scenario in my 125 gallon planting tank. This is something that's not going to be fixed overnight, sadly. It's going to take weeks, if not months, to recover fully, but at least I know the problem and I'm able to share with you guys, because I know it can be pretty common if you have a substrate that doesn't get a lot of flow, like sand, dirt, something that's really compact. You have a high risk of this, especially if you set it up with water in the tank. I highly recommend that you don't do that. That was my main problem. I was being lazy. I always hate when my fish have to suffer because of my laziness. But yeah, I was being lazy, and instead of taking out all the water, I left 1 inch of water. I added dirt to that 1 inch of water, and that just trapped so much oxygen. And it could have all been prevented if I would have just drained the tank completely. So lesson learned, and hopefully you guys can learn from this. If you're working with dirt, if you're working with just any fine substrate, you want to make sure you get all the oxygen out of that substrate. It's best if you add any substrate to your tank, you do it with the tank completely drained. I know sometimes we do substrate swaps and we try to leave the fish and water in the tank, but if you do that, you got to do it fully. You got to make sure you go dig in that substrate, make sure it's fully aerated so that no gas can be trapped. So YouTube, that's a look at the tank. One of these videos where I don't like to make, where my fish are suffering because of me being lazy, but you know it happens, and hopefully you can learn from this. So YouTube, let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you on the next one.